Hey, good morning. It's Mark here. Another morning rant. Time on deck. Hey, we seem to have found, or we seem to have located election fraud. I think we found election fraud. I'm going to let Rachel Maddow explain it. She can do it way better than I can.
Wisconsin, the Republicans did it privately, and I kid you not, they forged all the paperwork to make it seem like they were the real electors. Look, we have the paperwork that they forged. Look, certificate of the votes of the 2020 electors from Wisconsin. We, the undersigned, being the duly and qualified electors for President and Vice President of the United States of America from the state of Wisconsin, do hereby certify the following. A, that we convened and organized at the state capitol in the city of Madison, Wisconsin at noon on the 14th day of December 2020 to perform the duties enjoined upon us. B, that being so assembled and duly organized, we proceeded to vote by ballot and balloted first for president and then for vice president by distinct ballots. And C, that the following are all of the votes for president and all of the votes for vice president, so cast aforesaid. All sounds very official, right? Until you get to this part. Who were the votes cast for? Donald J. Trump, number of votes, 10. Michael R. Pence, number of votes, 10. We, what are they? The duly and qualified electors? Yeah, then they all signed it.
They signed their names.
This were a real thing. With all this official seeming language, in witness whereof, we the undersigned have hereunto at the Capitol in the city of Madison, Wisconsin on this 14th day of December, subscribed our respective names. And then indeed, there's all 10 of them signing their names to this forged document that says they're the real electors. And Wisconsin's electors cast the state's votes for Trump, even though Trump lost Wisconsin.
Now, got a commercial going on here. So, yeah. Wisconsin held a secret, fraudulent elector vote to try to elect Donald Trump and Mike Pence when it was clear that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris had won the state. Let's keep going.
And they didn't just do this to to LARP, right? They didn't do this to put it in a scrapbook to fantasize about what their alternate reality might have been like had Trump won. They actually submitted this forged documentation, memorandum, to the President of the United States Senate, to the Archivist of the United States, to the Wisconsin Secretary of State, to the Chief Judge of the U.S. District Court in the Western District of Wisconsin. These are all the places the actual electoral vote count is supposed to be submitted if you were real electors. They submitted theirs as if it were the real thing. Quote, pursuant to 3 U.S. Code Section 11, enclosed, please find Wisconsin's electoral votes for president and vice president. There was no such thing enclosed with that document. There was a forged document saying Wisconsin's electors voted for Trump, which was not true. Those were not real electors. These documents were forged to make it look like Wisconsin was officially saying Trump won the state when actually Biden did. It's amazing that they did that. And the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, who again had this scoop that the Republicans had done that secretly behind closed doors while the real electors were meeting down the hall, they had this prescient note toward the end of their reporting that day. Again, this is just over a year ago. This was December last year. Quote, the Electoral College votes now go to Congress, which will count them on January 6th. Vice President Mike Pence will preside over the tally. Some Republicans have raised the possibility of having members of Congress challenge the results of some states and try to shift votes to Trump. Yep, that's in fact what happened. And 10 Wisconsin Republicans agreed to impersonate the real electors from their state, and they provided a forged set of documents so Republican electors from Wisconsin could be substituted for the real ones if the plan had worked. Inside Wisconsin, people who worry full-time about the democracy and, crucially, people who know what modern Wisconsin Republicans are like up close and personal, they have taken this very seriously.
Now, I can go further with that. That's a 12-minute video. I can go ahead and play the whole thing out, and I don't have to comment. You don't have to hear me talk at all. You can go and look that up and listen to it for yourself. But that was obvious fraud. Obvious fraud. While the real electors were being met down the hall in front of the state legislature, in front of everybody, they were down the hall, excuse me, in an office, hidden from everybody, forging documents to try to vote for Trump and Mike Pence. The state of Wisconsin was doing that. They were trying to throw doubt on the 2020 election. No different than when, I think it was South Carolina that sent 2 slates of electors to the Congress in 1877. Look, if we don't learn history, if you don't learn from your past, you're doomed to repeat it. And that's what the Republican Party is trying to do. In 1877, during the Rutherford B. Hayes and Samuel J. Tilden election, South Carolina, there was a lot of fraud going on. Now look, go back and watch. I keep saying this, people. Go back and watch Gangs of New York. Gangs of New York will explain to you how politicians will cheat to get people to go vote. They will get a man with a full head of hair, long beard, everything, right? He will go vote. Then they will go and cut his hair. He go vote again. Then they go cut his beard and keep his mustache. He go vote again. And then they cut his mustache. He go vote again. Go watch Gangs of New York. It'll show you. And what they're trying to do is cheat the system. In the 1877 election, that's what happened in South Carolina. And I think there was some other fraud going on in Louisiana and one more state. It was like 3 states that were jacked up, and that was blatant fraud. Blatant fraud. You can see the fraud. And so they had no choice but to go to per the Constitution. If there's a discrepancy and this, again, this is what the Republicans tried to get Donald Trump to do, because there was some discrepancy, because there was a dispute amongst the Republicans that there was some fraud going on, even though the Justice Department, the state legislatures, the state governors, even though everybody said, hey, this was fair and legit, there was no fraud. The Republican Party said, yes, there was. Because, again, Donald Trump said this in 2016. If I lost, they cheated. He did it again in the 2018 midterms. We lost, they cheated. And then right before the 2020 election, he said, if I lose, they cheated. He kept doing that so he could win. So now that he lost, he said, yep, they cheated. So the Republican Party go out and said, yes, they cheated. There's fraud there. Here it is. There was no fraud. None. And the fraud that was committed, was the Republicans. There's about 5 or 6 cases of Republican people, not Republican officials, but people that are citizens that identified as Republican that cheated. One guy took his dead mother's registration and voted for her. Republican. Texas Lieutenant Governor, I did a report on this. Texas Lieutenant Governor went out and said, I will pay you so much amount of money if you can find fraud. And a guy in Iowa or wherever it was, he found fraud, but it was from the GOP, and that Republican Lieutenant Governor had to pay that guy because he found fraud. Excuse me. And that's what Wisconsin tried to do. They tried to cheat and send another slate of electors. Again, there was nothing wrong with the Wisconsin voting. There was no fraud in the Wisconsin ballots. But they went and did it anyway to try to throw some kind of salt on the election to get the vice president as the president of the Senate to get, in a joint session of Congress, to get him to change the votes, to throw him out. And then they kept going back. If you believe, like Jim Jordan and a lot of other people, a lot of other politicians, they kept texting Mike, the chief of staff. I can't remember his name, but I did a video on that too. They kept texting him saying the vice president has a right to challenge the votes, which he does if there's fraud, and send it back to the state legislatures. Why? Because Republicans control majority of the state legislatures in the United States. And when you send it back to the House to vote, even though the Democrats control the House of Representatives by maybe 5 votes, when you go state by state, Republicans have more states. Blatant fraud. We found it, folks. We found election fraud. And sadly enough, it's from the GOP or the GQP. This is amazing. Let's listen to just a little bit more. Let's see what she got to say. Let's listen to a little bit more before we get up out of here.
And they have tried this year to make sure that it not only wouldn't go unnoticed, but that there would be consequences for what the Republicans tried to do. Attorney Jeffrey Mandel with the Wisconsin legal group Law Forward. He wrote to the State Election Commission in Wisconsin and also to the Milwaukee County District Attorney, the prosecutor there, referring those 10 fake electors who forged that paperwork, referring them for potential prosecution. Quote, following the November 2020 election, 10 individuals impersonating the legally selected and authorized presidential electors of the state flouted the will of the people as expressed at the ballot box and fraudulently attempted to misappropriate Wisconsin's participation in selecting the next president of the United States. We write to you to request your assistance in investigating these events, in determining if they violate long-standing Wisconsin law, and helping deter others from ever attempting such a grave and brazen offense against our democracy. We write to draw your attention to the actions of these fraudulent electors.
So, so this is the problem. There was excuse me, people. A couple of generals wrote a letter saying that this country, this democracy, is really on thin ice. We're tap dancing on eggshells here, people. Our democracy is at stake here. And the Republican Party they're good at messaging. They keep throwing it out there that the Democrats are at fault here, and that you need these laws, and you need these barriers and parameters up to try to block people from voting. Excuse me. They're also the same people that are part of the election fraud, the same people that say that there was election fraud. They're running for Congress, they're running for Senate, they're running for state legislatures, they're running to be secretaries of state, because secretaries of state, they count the ballots. Everybody knows that Governor Kemp, I think it's Governor Kemp of Georgia, he was Secretary of State running for governor of Georgia, and before his election, he purged about 60,000 people off the list. Anyway, there's some fraud going on here, people, but it's not from the Democrat Party. It's from the Republican Party. They hate that they lost the 2020 election. They hate that. Look, their campaign, their platform for 2020 was nothing. They had no platform. Their platform for 2020 was whatever Trump wants to do, we're good with it. That was their platform. And they thought that was going to get them over the top. They thought that was going to get them to win. Again, the election fraud that happened in 2020 came from Republicans. And here is proof. You cannot deny this. They signed their names on a fraudulent document and tried to submit that to the archivist, the president of the Senate, and everywhere else. That's blatant fraud, people. And it needs to be dealt with, and these people need to be punished, because if they don't be punished, it's gonna happen again. If the Congress people that texted Mark Meadows, the chief of staff, and said, hey, you have got to get the president to stop this and change the ballots and do all this other stuff and get Mike Pence to do this, if these people are not prosecuted to the full extent of the law, not only will it happen again in 2022, but it damn sure will happen in 2024. And this country is going to be in the midst of a civil war. Not a civil war, maybe not a civil war like happened in 1861, but a civil war nonetheless. There was a guy that said, when do we start using our guns? A Republican said, when do we start using our guns? They can't wait to go out and start killing people. Let me get up out of here. I gotta load this thing up. I gotta load this video up. But look, if you stayed this long, I appreciate it. Hey, if you're on Facebook, go ahead and follow the Facebook page. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and like, share, subscribe. If you're on Instagram, if you're on Twitter, go ahead and follow your boy. Christmas is around the corner. Hey, Merry Christmas, people. Have a happy and blessed and safe New Year. Let's try to come together in these peaceful times. If you're Jewish, if you're Christian, if you celebrate Kwanzaa, any and all religions that seem to happen or take place around this holiday, let's take this time to say we made it. Despite everything that happened in 2019, 2020, and 2021, and especially 2021, we are still here. We made it. All right? So, again, you guys have a great, what today is? Thursday? Yep. You guys have a great Thursday, and I will see you guys on the next video. I'm out. Y'all take care.